Hey YouTube, it's Magician34, and I have a very popular deck revamped for our more modern format, and actually the new March 2013 format. It's really exciting. It plays very well. It is Obelisk the Tormentor. It runs 3 copies of Obelisk the Tormentor, obviously, and this is running the quote-unquote Ultimate Obelisk, where it's an even more unstoppable version of Obelisk the Tormentor than usual because it uses Hardened Armed Dragon as a tribute fodder, so that the few things that can actually stop Obelisk, like Mirror Force and Torrential Tribute, obviously not Torrential off his own summon, but if another monster gets summoned, Torrential could wipe him out. Thanks to Hardened Armed Dragon's ability, he'll therefore be protected from it, so it's like virtually impossible to kill Obelisk when you tribute him off of Hardened Armed Dragon. Very, very few effects in the game have any hope of stopping it. It's pretty much a scoop effect for your opponent. So bearing that in mind, we run 3 Obelisks. We're obviously going to be facilitating a lot of tributes, and Light and Darkness Dragon is an excellent inclusion, basically because you can tribute him out easily in this deck, and when he dies, you can go get Hardened Armed Dragon out of your graveyard with Light and Darkness Dragon's effect. And it's also a great stall control card that can buy you some turns to get all your pieces together, not that it's very hard. We do have one other tribute monster in this deck. It's Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, which might seem like kind of a question mark to you at first. That's a Galaxy Eyes, maybe hard to see because it's a ghost. It seems like kind of a question mark, but it's an easy tribute. It's a hard monster to kill in battle, especially considering you can tribute him off of Hardened Armed Dragon fairly easily. This guy with Hardened Armed Dragon's effect to protect him becomes a real pain in the butt. And he's also a good target for Light and Darkness Dragon to get out of the grave if you just need a big monster who can stop a big attack. Basically, if they shrink your Light and Darkness Dragon a little bit, run him over, you can go get Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon out of the grave and stop their battle phase cold, pretty much. Or at least really slow it down, take all the teeth out of it. So, it is a good inclusion, and it can easily be foddered off for other effects, so it's not really bad in your hand. We're using the Frog engine to get this going, because frogs are just so natural for Obelisk, and they support him so well. So, 2 Treeborn Frogs. 3 Swap Frogs, because they get Treeborn and Ronin Toadine into the grave. Speaking of which, 1 copy of Ronin Toadine, because 1's really all you need, because he's so searchable. And we're running 2 copies of Dupe Frog. Don't forget that even if your deck doesn't have any more frogs in it, Dupe can still use this effect to go search the grave, and he's a good first turn set if you need one. So we are running 2 of him, and basically you just remove him for Ronin Toadine. 1 copy of Gorz, the Emissary of Darkness. Great way to get tribute fodder and a slow your opponent down, beat him up kind of card. Just works in many capacities. 1 copy of Tragoedia. We could use more, but this guy's real iffy sometimes. So we're just running the 1. Kind of an early game card, really. And in some ways, he's really just a 4th copy of Battle Fader, of which we run 3. Because he's just a cold stop in a lot of cases for your opponent, especially with Solemn Warning now at 1 copy. We're running 2 copies of Hardened Armed Dragon. Our deck has some good acceleration and deck thinning, so 2 is really quite a good number in order to hit him. And remember, he can special summon himself by discarding a level 7 or higher from your hand. So basically, pitch any of your tribute monsters. If you have more than 1 in hand, you can special him to the board and then sack him for Obelisk. And our last couple of monsters for the deck are 2 copies of Max C. And this is pretty obvious if your opponent tries to go off on you. Virtually every deck right now uses special summons to some extent. So this can be a great way to draw lots of cards and hit like a Battle Fader or a Gorz or Tragoedia or something to slow them down for a turn and pretty much go off on them on the next turn. Speaking of acceleration, we're running 3 copies of Upstart Goblin. This basically means we're running a 37 card deck because it's self-replacing, and your opponent gaining 1,000 doesn't matter because we're running Obelisk. And if you summon him correctly in this deck, off of Hardened Armed, the fact that they have 1,000 more life points will not matter in the slightest. Even if you play all 3 of them and they have 3,000 extra life points, doesn't matter. Obelisk is going to kill him, and you can easily summon more big monsters on following turns to help Obelisk beat him down quickly. So Upstart is not a problem at all. It's a very natural inclusion. We're also running our 1 copy of One Day of Peace. Just accelerates you and protects you for a turn. It's just an amazing card. This isn't the most combo-y combo deck, but it still appreciates the card greatly, and your opponents will not appreciate it. We run 1 copy of Pot of Avarice. Sending stuff back isn't necessarily so crucial in this deck, but what is awesome about it is just the draw 2. And sending back tribute monsters from your grave can be good, but it's just basically the draw power and reload and whatnot. It's an obvious inclusion for a deck that's going to stuff the grave so quickly. We run 1 copy of Foolish Burial. This can be used to get your Hardened Armed. It can also be another out to Treeborn Frog or Ronin Toadine, you name it. One copy of Monster Reborn, kind of a duh card in every deck, but also very good in this deck for all the right reasons. We're also running 3 copies of Enemy Controller. With Treeborn Frog, it's amazing. It helps you get your double tributes every time off of that. Just endless value, and you can of course use it with running Toadine if you want. 1 copy of Dark Hole, just field cleaning, and if Obelisk gets off correctly, or any of your 2 tribute monsters get off Hardened Armed, obviously this won't hurt them, but it will still hurt your opponent, which is excellent. We run 1 copy of Book of Moon. This can be used to save your Light and Darkness Dragon if your opponent like shrinks him down and tries to attack him. And it's also just another good, slow him down kind of card, good control element. And lastly, we are running 1 copy of Heavy Storm, just to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Obviously, Obelisk protects himself pretty well, but for your other elements, it's a good card, and we're not running much back row ourselves anyway. We're also running 3 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. This is just more or less to kind of help seal the deal, because there is still 1 Solemn Warning and 1 Solemn Judgment out there, which can interfere with getting the pieces together to summon Obelisk. So it's just kind of a no-brainer in support. The extra deck's pretty flexible. But I'm running 2 copies of Gachi Gachi Kentetsu. You don't go into the extra deck often, but this is probably the guy you're going to be making more often than not. Number 96, Dark Mist, because if you do make him, he's pretty amazing, actually. We're running 2 copies of Slacker Magician, because Treeborn and Battle Fader make this pretty easily, and it's a nice little control card, and if the time's right, you can make it. It's just a target. We also have 1 copy of number 83, Galaxy Queen. You could summon Hieratic Sun Dragon, Overlord of Heliopolis off your level 8s. You're not likely to, but I mean, I guess you could. And if you do want to Xyz for rank 8, this is pretty much the guy to go for right now. With Tragoedia and Monster Reborn, lots of things are possible, and enemy controllers, so Volcasaurus is a rank 5 for us. For rank 4, if we ever do make it, we got Maestroke and Gaga Cowboy. For rank 3, we have Leviair the Sea Dragon and Wind Up Zenmanes. Once again, Monster Reborn and enemy controller might give you outs to sinking by stealing tuners, like maybe basically you might get an Effect Veiler, so there is 1 Scrap Dragon, 1 Ally of Justice Cataster, and 1 Formula Synchron, because Treeborn Frog plus enemy controller might just get you into this or something like that. So those are your options. Some of these are negotiable, but for the most part, this is a really good extra deck for the Obelisk deck. But feel free to play with it yourself. This is a really good deck. I really have been impressed with what I've seen of it so far, and I suggest you give it a try. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool gaming content.